I-24 News has learned from a source inside Amnesty Israel that their branch has been suspended for 2 years. Amnesty Israel was given 2 reasons from Amnesty International on this move. The first being the branch conducts itself in a racist manner against Palestinians. And second, the reports and messaging coming from Amnesty Israel don't align with Amnesty International. There are several disagreements between the two sides, but according to the source, Amnesty International has targeted Amnesty Israel for being vocal with disagreements and not conforming to what is being presented in London. The source denies any allegations of racism towards Palestinians, saying there are internal mechanisms in place to consult with both Palestinian and Jewish staffers on the organization's output. Amnesty Israel has also been dissatisfied with the lack of emphasis placed on Israeli victims by the broader organization. So what does this suspension effectively mean? Well, to break it down for us, I am joined now by Alan Baker, former legal advisor to the Israeli Foreign Ministry and former ambassador to Canada, as well as the head of the International Law Program at the Jerusalem Center for Foreign and Security Affairs. Thank you for being with us on the Rundown tonight.
You're welcome.
Now, I want to begin with Amnesty Israel being suspended from Amnesty International. What effectively does this mean? The organization can pretty much no longer function for at least 2 years?
Well, it's somewhat comical because Amnesty International has consistently for many, many years, as long as I remember, taken a very one-sided and hostile attitude towards Israel, whatever Israel does or does not do. I think one of the most difficult jobs must be to be a representative of Amnesty International in Israel or the Israeli branch and to try and persuade their home office to accept explanations or reasoning coming from the Israeli side. And I think this is what lies behind this very hostile point of view of the base of Amnesty International in London.
And so what happens next then? Because as you mentioned, the Amnesty Israel and Amnesty International had long had these disputes, but without the voice of Amnesty Israel to push back against some of these anti-Israel sentiments coming from Amnesty International, will Amnesty International only become more anti-Israel?
Well, I'm not sure whether Amnesty International can become more anti-Israel than it already is. And so the fact that they're silencing the Amnesty Israel branch, I don't think it will add or subtract anything from the situation as it exists already. So I really think that it's a non-issue. Amnesty International is a declared organization that continues to view with hostility anything that Israel does or doesn't do. This is irrespective of what the Israeli branch of Amnesty International might say or might do. So I really don't think that this will make any change whatsoever in the way that Amnesty International is conducting its very hostile, one-sided and biased activities.
Alan, from your legal perspective, is there anything legally that Amnesty Israel can do to really push past this move?
Well, I'm not aware of the legal relationship between the Israel branch of Amnesty and the Home Office. There might well be some instructions or rules as to how the interrelationship should be, in which case Amnesty Israel should look into this and question the decision of the Home Office in London.
Yes, certainly. Interesting to see exactly how this could play out, but it seems, like you mentioned, there might not be many repercussions from this. Alan Baker, thank you so much for joining us and breaking this down.
You're very welcome.
Now, in the midst of all of this news and disagreements between both Amnesty International and Amnesty Israel, the chairman of Amnesty Israel resigned about 2 months ago, saying his branch was excluding the voices of Palestinians. We are joined now by the former chair of Amnesty Israel, Daniil Brodsky. Daniel, let's start with your decision to resign about 2 months ago. I'm curious, how did it come to that?
So when I joined Amnesty Israel, the board had no Palestinians at all. I quickly discovered that the staff has Palestinians, but not in a managerial position. So not in a place where they could set the agenda, for example, alongside Jewish Israelis. And so that is something that I sought to correct. Now, before I felt comfortable saying that there is an anti-Palestinian bias, I investigated this issue thoroughly. It was also independently investigated and substantiated. And since this crisis broke out, a lot of people that were in Amnesty Israel before came out to say the same thing. So for me, once I realized that I could not fix Amnesty Israel, I could not fix the anti-Palestinian bias, it was built into the structure, me and my colleagues decided that we can simply not be part of this.
Yet it is so different, it sounds, the Amnesty Israel views versus the Amnesty International views. And so what do you make of this news that Amnesty International suspending their Amnesty Israel branch?
So, first of all, it's important to note that it came as news to me as well. I of course, wasn't part of this decision, but it's worth noting that Amnesty Israel had a board of 9 people, and 5 people quit over this issue. 4 of them with opinions very similar to mine. So I wouldn't say that structurally Amnesty Israel was so different from Amnesty International. It's just so that it came down to some people believing that Palestinians should be part of the process and that we should take their worldview into account. And some people thought that it was just not a priority, and they were comfortable just giving their own opinions as just representing Amnesty Israel. And, that was simply, I see that as unacceptable, but I don't think there was an inherent difference between Amnesty International and Amnesty Israel. A lot of people in Amnesty Israel shared, at least generally, the viewpoints in Amnesty Israel, but of course in Amnesty International. But of course, Amnesty International is a huge movement and very, very diverse as well. It's not just a one monolithic thing.
And so with this, then, loss of Amnesty Israel, at least for 2 years, even though there had been many disagreements and many critics against Amnesty International for many of sometimes claims their anti-Israel perspective and anti-Israel reports. But now Amnesty Israel isn't even having a voice to either combat that or fix the problems that Amnesty International might have presented. And so what happens next?
So firstly, it's very important for me to note that I represented Amnesty Israel for a while. My voice was taken very seriously. I never encountered anything that I could describe as anti-Israeli in any inherent way. Now, regarding what happens, so many sections in the world have been closed. This is not exclusive to Amnesty Israel or a unique issue in any way. That being said, Amnesty Israel is not being closed. It's suspended. And as far as I know, there is a roadmap to now decide how to deal with this situation. So this is not Amnesty Israel being unilaterally just kicked out or anything like that. There is a roadmap. There will be a decision-making that is taken democratically as per the standards set by Amnesty International.